to our podcast where we want to encourage you to look for opportunities in your life to see a beautiful view. I'm Candy.
And I'm Paul. Today we are talking about how to keep a positive attitude while acknowledging the realities that we face in life. We look forward to sharing with you once again, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the beautiful view.
We could climb a mighty mountain, float on down a winding river, travel back in time and face our future too. Oh, I'm not scared of where I'm going, 'cause I know whose hands I'm holding. Oh, I'd go anywhere as long as you're going to. Well, I'd go anywhere as long as I'm with you.
So we have been at the Iowa Podcast Awards this weekend.
We have.
I noticed our t-shirts.
Yes.
Woo, woo.
Yeah, representing.
Yeah, so we had a fabulous time.
We did. But before we tell you about our fun-filled weekend, we want to take a moment to thank our newest Patreon member, Chance.
Yes, thank you, Chance. Thank you for your support. We really appreciate it.
Yes.
We camped at Palisades Kepler State Park in Cedar Rapids.
Which is where we are right now.
Which is where we are right now. So we've been here since Friday evening.
Yeah.
And on Saturday, we went into town, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but we went and scoped out where we were supposed to be for the awards on Sunday.
Yes.
When we first got there was actually like a Christian concert in the park. We pulled up to worship music and stuff. It was really cool. Sunday, we started our day at the Nubo City Market. This is where the Iowa Podcast Awards is kicking off today. It's not the awards show until tonight. No. Today we have a scheduled day of live podcasters, kind of workshops and that kind of stuff. So we're hoping to learn a lot today. So
and meet new people. We started off with a confused breakfast.
Yes, that's the name of the podcast that we listened to first thing this morning after we checked in, and they were entertaining.
They really were entertaining. They were talking about their top 15 podcasts that they like to listen to. They usually review like movies from the 80s and 90s, but this time they were talking about podcasts. And so I thought it was really neat to just watch them recording, and further proof of my theory that there's no way I could have done that.
Yeah, live podcasting, that's next level. I don't think we're there yet. I think we need a little more practice first.
Well, we need the ability to seem live, but still have the capability of cutting pieces out that need to be cut out.
There's a lot of editing that happens in our podcast production.
A lot of editing. But the Nubo City Market is right behind us here. It's in the Nubo neighborhood.
It's a really cool place. We came across yesterday, and it basically is a hub for entrepreneurs in this area.
Yeah.
And there's everything from like little restaurant kind of things. There's arts and crafts. There's kind of a...
It's a real interesting vibe.
Yeah.
It's an old neighborhood that was originally, there were Czech immigrants that came and settled right here. And so it's a Czech neighborhood. So there's some old houses around this like center square here.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful.
It's a cool place.
Oh, it is. Very interesting little stores and stuff. So if you ever come to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, then you definitely need to come here and check this out. It's really worth a visit. Yeah.
We met several other podcasters this morning, and I'm sure that we're going to meet a whole bunch more as the day goes on. But we met the guys from the Manstream podcast, which is also in Bellevue, Iowa. So
go
that was
Bellevue.
Really neat. Yeah. So we'll be rooting for them too, and we met another lady that we sat at a table with her. She has a matchmaking podcast. But I think it's just going to be a really fun day. We're looking forward to it.
It's going to be interesting. We're off to a workshop now, so we'll be stopping every so often during the day and giving you some updates, and we've got some interesting stories to tell as we get into this podcast.
So after we had our coffee and everything, we moved over to the Armstrong Hub, which is about a half a mile down the road.
Yeah, not far.
And I think we actually have a little clip of us from there. So we'll show that.
and it's kind of like this co-working space, and at the other end of this floor, there's actually a studio. So it's like a little mini TV studio, I guess.
Yeah. They've been doing live podcasts over there today, so we've gotten to sit in on a couple of those. So it's been kind of fun. The first one, it's dream interpretation.
It's kind of a fun idea.
It's funny.
Yeah.
So we actually submitted one of Paul's crazy dreams to them before, and they actually used it in the live podcast.
Oh,
you want to tell them about that?
Yeah,
tell about that dream?
I woke up this one morning and I had this really disturbing dream. I dreamt that I had red hair and spaghetti growing out of my ankles. And I knew that wasn't normal, so I was trying to trim the red hair and spaghetti from my ankles, but it hurt. I couldn't cut into it because it hurt too bad.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
So anyway, they shared that, so that was fun. And then the second live that we went to, we caught the tail end of it because it was kind of over lunchtime, but it was a lady that we met first thing this morning, and
her name is Kat.
And she has Dear Matchmaker podcast.
Yes, she does.
And she is a professional matchmaker, which is really fascinating to me.
The great thing is that it seemed like the podcast hosts were nervous about doing this live in front of other people.
Yeah.
And so
we do it in front of the dogs all the time.
The dogs,
but, doing it in
and they
front
love
of an
everything
audience is like next level. So I don't know that we're ready for that yet.
No, we're not ready for that. Or I'm not sure I would ever be ready for that. But, and then we just were in a workshop that was it was really cool. It was called the 30-second challenge. And so explain, what did they do?
So they take the first 30 seconds of submitted podcasts, and it's up to you whether you submit.
Voluntary.
So, we submitted ours to get some feedback, hopefully from some professionals. So we had a podcast producer that was one of the judges. We had a fellow podcaster who they have the Confused Breakfast podcast, and it's really popular.
And their office is right here on this floor.
And then we had another girl who is in marketing, and she is an avid podcast listener. So between the three of them and our other podcasting compadres. Padres, they gave us some feedback on our podcast, which was very helpful. Most of it was very positive. There were a couple of things that we could probably
points to work on,
a little bit, which is always
great.
Good to have those kinds of things. So,
and even in the process of thinking about our submission and thinking like what people hear in the first 30 seconds of our podcast, made us do the last episode differently. And so that's really been helpful to hear that. But they said a lot of positive things about our podcast being feeling very
cozy was the word that everybody used.
Comforting, and wanted to spend time with us, and so that's cool.
Yeah, that's cool that you get that vibe in the first 30 seconds. I love that. So that's mission accomplished, I think.
So this has been a really interesting exercise for us to actually see and be around other people that do the same thing. And I think everybody here would acknowledge that recording a podcast is just an odd thing to do.
It is. I think it's been said several times that people who do this sort of thing are a little different.
Yeah. I definitely fall into that category of being a little different.
So we're here with a lot of people that are a little different.
Yes.
Which is our kind of people, actually.
Yes. So it's been a good experience, and we are looking forward to this afternoon and, of course, the Podcast Awards this evening. So stay tuned.
Yes.
So then we went back to the Nouveau Market area, and on one side is the Olympic Theater, and
this was in the evening.
So we go back in the evening, and so there's like a coffee shop in the downstairs, and the theater itself is on the upstairs section of it, and it was, a gorgeous venue.
So here we are at the Olympic Theater.
Yes.
We are ready to go to the Iowa Podcast Awards. It's been a great day.
Yep.
We've had a lot of fun.
It's been a fantastic day, hasn't it?
Learned a lot. Yeah.
Made some new friends.
Yeah.
Learned a lot.
We're all dressed up and spiffy.
Yeah. And there's we've been nominated in a couple of categories.
Yeah.
And everybody's in the People's Choice Awards.
We're up against some really talented people. So not holding our breath, but just going for the experience. It's going to be a great time.
We're going to go meet and greet and say hi to some people and see how this goes.
Yeah. All right. We'll keep you posted.
All right.
We get there. They had kind of like an hour before, kind of like a mingle kind of thing, so where you could kind of meet some of the other podcasters. And there were a lot of people that showed up to that had not been there during the day.
Right.
So that was really interesting.
Yes.
So we met a few other people that we hadn't seen during the day, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then it was time for it to start. They started flashing the lights. Everybody go find your seat.
I mean, and by that point, the place was full.
It was full. I think they said they were expecting around 200 people last night.
It felt like it.
I would say they were probably close to that.
Yeah, so it's not a big theater at all, but it really was
full.
Yeah, it was full, and it was a good atmosphere.
Yeah.
The production of the show was outstanding.
It was. They did a really great job. Now, this was the first ever Iowa Podcast Awards. This was brand new this year. So we actually got to go to the very first one. That's pretty cool. Upload
Media are actually members of a national group of podcasters. And so the way the process went is that we entered our podcast into the award show, as did everybody else. Mm-hmm. And then there was a panel of judges made up of, there was 10 judges in total, all over the country and 2 overseas, who were not part of the group that was putting this show on. Right. So it was not biased in any way.
Right.
And so you enter, and then you get nominated by this panel to be presented for an award.
Which I think they ended up with way more entries than they ever expected to. So in the categories we were in, there were either 6 or 7 nominees, official nominees. So,
out of all of the entries. And then they would go through the nominees just the same as you see on TV for any award show.
Here are the nominees for Best Wellness and Relationship Podcast.
Your nominees for Best Wellness or Relationship Podcast. Beautiful View.
Welcome to our podcast where we look for opportunities in our lives to see a beautiful view. I'm Candy.
And I'm Paul.
Dear Matchmaker.
Welcome to another episode of Dear Matchmaker. What is up, my friend?
Fall Starts, putting mental health in the playbook.
Hey everybody, welcome to the newest episode of Fall Starts. I am your host, Chris Shipley. As always, joined by Bill Blank.
How'd you sleep?
You're listening to How'd You Sleep with Jennifer and Lisa.
How'd you sleep? Menacing Martians. On the Pen. The Weekly Dose.
Welcome to the Weekly Dose podcast, your one-stop shop for the weekly news in endocrine mimetic therapies, with your host, man of the Manjaro, Dave Mann.
Southeast Iowa Today with John Bain.
I'm John Bain, author of Christie's Journey, The Beat Goes On, and I'm the host of the podcast Southeast Iowa Today.
Yeah, so we go through the categories, and we had been nominated in 2 different categories, and so those came up, and the very first one,
which was really early on in the awards.
It was kind of early on, and we had prepared beforehand a little speech, like we had it on our phones just in case. Just a little quick speech, but I don't know. I mean, it was nice to have it there, but I didn't think we would need it.
Yeah.
And then they go through and they said, and the winner is...
Okay, and the winner is... Beautiful View.
Beautiful View. So this was for the Best Wellness and Relationship Podcast.
Yeah, so it really meant a lot to us.
Yeah, of all the things, this was probably the one thing that we were really kind of... hoping for.
We were hoping for. So when they announced it, it was one of those moments where it's like...
I think I stopped breathing for a minute.
Well, and the funny thing was, at just that moment, a bunch of phone calls came in on your phone.
Yes, they did.
So I thought you were like punching every button on your phone on the way up. So by the time we get up to the stage, Candy's phone has completely gone haywire, so she shuts it off. So I've got the little script on my phone, and I put it on the podium. And so we did that. We got through it just fine. But it was just like we're just like floating through the whole thing. This thing doesn't feel real.
It did not feel real.
Didn't feel real at all.
It was wild. So, but what an honor, because
it was.
We were there with some of the most talented creators and podcasters in the whole state of Iowa. So what an honor and a privilege to be nominated and to actually win this beautiful trophy. And yeah, it was a really, really cool experience. It took us a long time to climb down from that last night. It really did.
And it was just so exciting seeing everybody else get their awards.
Yes,
and everybody cheering for each other and supporting each other and giving us a little bit of there was a lot of little backstories of all the podcasts along the way, of how long people have been podcasting for.
Yeah.
Some of them have been... Of course, there's a lot that transition over from radio to podcast.
Right, yeah.
So some of those guys have been going for decades.
Yeah.
And it was...
2007, 2008, some of them. I didn't even know that podcasting was a thing back then. Was it a thing?
I guess it was. But to be included in that and to receive the award... There were like a total of maybe like 28 awards, and there was probably 20 different podcasts represented in those awards, something like that. I'm sure they will post some of those details. Yeah. So to be included as one of those was... Yeah.
Oh, it's a huge honor.
It's huge very, honor. Very cool. Very cool.
So this episode...
Yes.
Is all about keeping it real. So as exciting as all of that was...
Yes, and how unreal it was as well.
In our podcast, we encourage our listeners to look for a beautiful view.
Yes.
But we also realize that there are times in life where that is really tricky.
Yeah, because and that's really it's all contained there in our little missional statement there, because you do have to look for opportunities, because the natural reaction in life is to respond in a negative way, to either feel hurt or to be defensive. I'm good at that one. To be defensive, to react in a bad way to situations. And as many fantastic experiences we had this weekend, we also had some really
terrifying experiences.
Terrifying /challenging frustrating.
All of it.
So it was a real mixture and a roller coaster ride. So
it was. So in today's episode, we're just going to keep it real.
Yes.
And we're going to include some bits and pieces from our weekend, but we're also going to talk about, the challenge of looking for the beautiful view. I really hope that all of our listeners and viewers don't think that we always have it together.
No.
We don't.
We absolutely do.
We totally don't. So let's reassure them how much we don't have it together. Why don't you tell them your Karen story from this last week? This was the beginning to kind of a wild weekend.
Yeah, it was. So most every week, one of us or both of us volunteer at the food share program in Bellevue.
Yes.
And so a lot of that on a Friday involves getting the food to Bellevue, and then making sure that everything gets stored in the right way and put in the right places. Yeah. So from time to time, we run out of refrigerator and freezer space at the church, and so we look for other places. So one of the places that has some freezer space we can use from time to time is the Senior Center in Bellevue.
Yes.
So we had several weeks ago, we had taken some cases of fish sticks to the Senior Center.
Fish sticks.
Yes, fish sticks. And we placed the cases of fish sticks in the freezer. So we get to the church, and our fearless leader, Kyle, he says to Mike and I, could you take, and Terry, could you take the truck over to the Senior Center and go pick up those fish sticks and bring them back?
Yeah.
What Simple could possibly go wrong?
What could go wrong?
So we all jump in the truck and we head off to the Senior Center. And Mike asked me, do you think there's anybody there? And I said, let me just call Karen real quick and make sure that there's someone there. So I pick up my phone and I look through the contacts. some kind of short circuit happened in my mind. I hit Karen, and Karen picks up the phone, and I said, "Hey, it's Paul. We are heading over to the senior center. Yeah. We're going to go pick up those cases of fish sticks that we dropped there the other weekend." And she goes, "Oh, okay." She said, I said, "Is there going to be anybody there?" And she said, "Well, I'm not there, but I can give you the phone number of the woman that is going to be there."
Of course, yeah.
So I'm like, okay. So I get off the phone. We're chit-chatting a little bit more. We're carrying on driving. And then suddenly, like, a text message comes in from Karen. And it has a name and a phone number. I'm not expecting to know who this person is.
Yeah.
So I just have this random name and a phone number.
Sure.
Well, on cell phones, you don't really pay attention to phone numbers anymore.
Right.
Even
it's just
though
under the name, right?
Well, she sent me the name and she sent me the phone number, but I just want to punch the link because I'm pretty convinced that I've talked to Karen and this is all fine.
Yeah.
So I punched the phone number. Lady answers, and I said, "Hey," I said, I just talked to Karen. We're on our way to the senior center. We're coming to pick up the fish sticks." And she's like, "Huh, okay. I'm not sure there is any fish sticks in our freezer." I said, "Oh yeah." I said, "I dropped them off there." Like I was just really, I dropped them off there.
Yeah.
So we get to the senior center. We pull around by the kitchen door. I'm still on the phone with this lady, and I said, "We just pulled around back. We're outside the kitchen door." She goes, "Okay." I said, "We'll come in and I'll show you where they are." So she said, "I'll meet you at the kitchen door."
Yeah.
Great. So
easy.
So we're standing there. It's an empty parking lot. There's no cars, no nothing.
Yeah.
And so we're standing there outside the kitchen door, and no one's opening the door. And she said, "Huh." She said, "I don't see you. Are you around by the brown door?" Well, the kitchen door we're looking at is white. I'm like, "We're by the white door." She said, "Are you at the right place?" And I said, the senior center opposite the school." And she says, "Yeah, opposite the school." I said, "Yes." "Oh, okay." She said, "Well, what kind of truck do you have?" So I tell her what kind of truck we have. And then I said, "So, senior center on State Street, right?" And then she said, it wasn't State Street. She said another road. And then I look at Mike and I'm like, I say the name of the road she's just said, and Mike's like, "There's no road here with that name."
that.
And so then I'm starting to figure out this is not the right number, but I'm just thinking it's not the right number. I said, "I think I've got the wrong number." And she said, "No, you're at the senior center, right?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm at the senior center." And then she said, "In Belton." And I said, "No, Bellevue."
Oh.
And so Belton is in Texas. Bellevue's in Iowa. Turns out when I hit Karen, I called my good friend Karen at First Baptist Belton, Texas.
Yes.
And she didn't miss a beat. She just answered me. I am in.
She never questioned why you were in Texas, why you had fish sticks at the senior center.
No question. She just gave me the name and number of the lady that was at the senior center.
Yeah.
And so
I think that means that she trusts you a lot.
Misplaced trust. Very misplaced trust. So we're in the wrong place. So I just say to the lady on the other end of the phone, I said, "Oh, I am really sure I have the wrong phone number now. I am so sorry." Later, so everybody was laughing at me, and that's okay. That's normal for me. And
it was fantastic.
But long story short, and that was a long story, I apologize, but long story short, throughout the day, with all good intentions, things can go awry.
Yes.
Sometimes.
Oh, yes.
Sometimes.
Yeah, well, even Saturday night. So we had gone into town and come back, and at this campground, they take their quiet hours very seriously, apparently. So the quiet hours begin at 10:30 p.m.
On the dot.
On the dot, apparently. So we drive back in at 10:39.
Which was also my fault because I had a hankering for French fries, so we were trying to find French fries.
Yeah,
but
we didn't. Everything was already closed. So anyway, we got back at 10:39.
Yes.
And the park ranger has this car pulled over.
Yeah.
Which we've seen that several times going in and out of
Just
here. I think people speed or whatever.
Yeah, so his lights lights flashing.
So we're going to very carefully go around them. And so we're very slow, you know, just being very cautious. And he puts his hand out like,
stop. Stop right there.
So we're like, okay. So he gets through talking to them, sends them on their way, and then comes over to Paul's window and
takes one look at me and says,
he wanted
give me a license.
See his ID. We're like, we're staying in the campground. Told him our site number.
We're here.
Yeah, and
you're supposed to be here.
So he went and ran his driver's license, and
I'm sure it took him a long time to read through all the stuff that's recorded under my driver's license number. Like nothing.
So anyway, it just was bizarre, and it just was like.
Why?
And we'd had something the day before where our neighbors came in. They like asked us to move the truck,
which you have in a campground.
Which happens on occasion, but they were kind of rude about it. Yeah, and like just kind of like
you're in the way. Could you?
And then they sat there like sprawled across the grass for like forever in their truck. And anyway, they were just kind of rude about it. So it's hard in those situations sometimes to keep a good attitude and to not. You know,
and not go off and say what you want to say, and we did our best.
We did.
Yeah.
We also had we had a slightly terrifying thing happen to us this weekend too. We are not joking when we say it's been a roller coaster ride all weekend. So highs and lows. So Saturday afternoon we decide it's getting hot outside.
Yeah.
And we're gonna stop and get a drink at one of the little places there on the, close to where we were.
Yeah.
So we go in, and the drink was poured, but unfortunately, the line cleaner that they use to clean their lines for taps had not been emptied of the cleaner.
And we're talking about some very toxic, caustic chemicals that came out of that tap.
So the drink gets poured. Paul takes a big swig of it.
It was
freaks out a little bit.
I mean, I'm like, multiple different sensations, and I knew it didn't look right, but for some reason I still decided, well, I mean, it's got to be fine.
Well, then I thought you were being overly dramatic, so I grabbed the glass and I'm like,
give me that here. It can't be that bad.
So I take a sip and I'm like, oh.
It could have been really bad.
Yeah, and thankfully the damage was very minimal, and we are okay. It was so bizarre. So trying to find the beautiful view.
Yes.
I mean, we didn't die.
That's a positive. We're still here talking to you, and we turned up for the award ceremony and were presented with the trophy.
Yeah.
And we're okay now.
Yeah, there's the beautiful view.
There's the beautiful view.
We watched a lot of live shows this weekend, and there are people that do live podcasting, and just whatever comes out, and that's what goes out. We don't do it that way, so ours get edited down and come out a little bit more polished.
Yes.
But on occasion, something gets left accidentally where, we've kind of slipped up, messed up or something, and then you have to go back in.
There's been a time or two, and we are doing our podcast kind of on the side of our work.
Right.
So oftentimes we're in a crunch to get the podcast done and out in time. And so there's been, especially recently, there have been 2 or 3 occasions where we've said, could you say that again?
Yeah.
And then it gets, you may even have seen one of these before I caught it or before Candy caught it, and she'll come to me and she said, I just watched the episode, did you mean to leave that part in? And I'm like, oh no. So I have to go in and I have to re-edit and re-upload. The idea of doing a live podcast like some of those guys do, like where they just like run the tape from beginning to end.
I can tell you right now, if we ever do that, I will be red from like the bottom of my chin to like my entire chest just goes red. I get just really nervous and the blood starts pumping and I just turn red.
I kind of freeze up. And I mean, even doing this, I'm getting more used to this.
Yeah.
But there's times, and those are the other parts we cut out of the podcast, where I go off on an idea and I have no idea where I'm going.
Yeah, I had no idea how to get back in.
No idea how to get back in.
I don't even know how to get back in from that.
So we're just keeping it real.
Speaking of that, where are we?
We're just keeping it real is what we're doing.
Okay. By saying that we should respond in a positive way to everything that happens to us in life.
Yes.
No matter what the situation. Is that realistic or is it not?
I think that we just have to go into life's situations with an awareness of the possibility, the distinct possibility that something could go wrong.
Yeah.
And then with myself, I can speak for myself, but like once the hackles start rising on the back of the neck, that's usually a good sign I need to take a breath and not respond.
Yeah.
So probably one of the good things to do, and one piece of advice we would give, is take some time to respond.
Yeah.
You don't have to answer the text message right away. You don't have to, change the subject even. Like if you're in a conversation and you feel like it's going in a direction, let's talk about that later. Something like that. That would be a better approach. So if we go into life knowing that this stuff is probably going to happen, then we can preempt the bad ways we could respond and choose to respond in a better way.
Yeah, I think the important thing is that we try being the key word,
really hard
to look for that beautiful view. I mean, this weekend, it's such a bizarre, we had so many bizarre situations come up, but at the end of the day, Saturday evening, after we'd kind of slept off whatever weird hangover we had from that line cleaner.
That bleach.
Yeah. We were like, okay, we've got to redeem this weekend. Let's go somewhere to eat. Let's go, go on a date. Let's kind of, redeem this weekend. Let's find the beauty again. So
yeah, it's important not to. We could have let the things that happened derail us completely.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But we were working our way up the next day to go into the podcast awards, meeting a bunch of really wonderful people, creators, and having the honor of receiving this, which is just, we would have missed all of that had we tanked and been
not taken the effort, not, you know.
Yeah, so take the effort to turn a situation around, see what possible beautiful views that there are. Sometimes you have to be content with the beautiful view being, I didn't respond.
I didn't die.
That's a good one. Or I just didn't respond in a bad way. Like you may not have been like, oh, that's okay. I love you anyway. But if we just avoided the situation, took a breath, took a step back, I think that's a win as well.
Yeah. That's good.
So why is it important to watch how we respond in every life situation?
Well, I think for me, I feel like people watch us.
They do.
Like, when you kind of do what we do, you kind of set yourself up for a little bit higher standard, I think.
Especially living in a small town as well.
Yeah, of course. So if I respond poorly to something, then that gets noticed.
Right.
If I respond well to something, that gets noticed.
Yes. And it's unrealistic to place the expectation on ourselves or have other people expect us to respond in a good way all the time.
Right. But can you imagine? We do have influence. Even if it's through this podcast, if it's through, friendships, if it's through
our work,
everything, and all of our listeners do too. You have a circle of influence.
You do. Yeah.
And can you imagine if just a fraction of the people in this world responded well when things didn't go their way, like what a different world we would live in.
Well,
right?
Absolutely. There's a huge problem with entitlement today.
Right.
And our kids have come across that. Like just in their little jobs that they have at the grocery store, people will come in and absolutely slam them for something that's not even.
Yeah,
like
it has nothing to do with them.
Nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
If you're going to a grocery store and you're going to check out. Be nice to the person there, because they might
be my kid.
it might be one of our kids. But if they've had a bad experience during the day, which when you're dealing with the public, that's going to happen.
Yeah, sure.
Then you could possibly turn their day around. So look out for those opportunities.
Well, and it goes vice versa as well. And I know our daughter Emily is really good at looking for those moments. When somebody comes through her line, somebody that is normally pretty upbeat and they're not that day, then she's really good about noticing that, and she'll ask them, and she's been known to even go around the counter and give people a hug.
Yes.
So, and that makes it back to mom sometimes, which is really sweet. So one thing that was really talked about this weekend was, as podcasters, everyone has a story to tell and everyone has something to share.
Yes.
And when we share things, there's someone on the other end listening.
Whether you realize it or not, you do have a story, and it's kind of your responsibility, our responsibility to tell that story.
Right,
because it will benefit someone else. It's not really a very natural thing to do, to sit here in front of microphones, in front of
this
cameras.
This is not how we have every conversation, I promise.
So, Candy, let's sit at the table. I really
Get
want
your microphone.
Yeah. Let's talk about what groceries we need this week. It's not natural.
That's not how that works.
That's not how that works.
No.
So, but one of the workshops that we went to, the guy was asking everybody there, and there was, 20 people in the room, 20 podcasters in the room, and he was asking us, like, why do we do this? And he said you get a certain sense of satisfaction from sharing with an audience, which is absolutely true.
Yeah.
So it is. There are lots of benefits to sharing your story, and this is just the weird, unnatural way to do it. But certainly in your circle of friends, your family, there are opportunities to share.
Yeah, and there are many people that just do this as a hobby.
Yes.
There are some people that do it to earn an income.
Yes.
I would say that ours falls somewhere closer to the hobby.
Yes. It's somewhat missional. We definitely feel like it's fulfilling a calling on our lives.
Absolutely. And we always look for ways to encourage people and to inspire other people. And this fits in that box.
Yes, and one of the judges at the 30-second challenge, because there was a panel of 3 judges there who gave their opinions about the first 30 seconds of your podcast.
Right.
When they were talking about engaging the audience, they said, just remember that you're doing this for an audience of 1. So,
and I wasn't really sure what he meant at that point. I was trying to figure out if he was talking about doing it for yourself, like if you were the audience of 1, or if you were thinking about the possibly 1 listener that was going to be on the other end of that.
Yeah.
I think for us, our audience of 1 is for the Lord.
Absolutely.
Everything that we do falls in that category. So,
yes.
What I grabbed from that may not be what someone else grabbed for that, but it was a reminder for me of why we do what we do. So
yeah, and we do know members of our audience that do watch this. We have family members that listen to the podcast every time it goes out.
Sure.
And so I know for me, I know that there is an audience of 1 person on the other side of this microphone and camera who's listening. And so I just hope that we have the words to say that would encourage someone to, encourage someone else.
So what would you say, talking about all of our experience from the weekend, what would you say your biggest takeaway from the weekend was?
So we were putting together the newsletter today, and we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
But when you put together the newsletter, you put in there what a summary of what our weekend was. You felt it was all about, the lesson to learn from it, and I might have a slightly different take on it than you.
That's perfect.
But not too far off. Like for me, it was like you wouldn't believe variety of different podcasts that were represented there at the awards.
Oh yeah.
It was all different things that you could possibly talk about and think of. Juggling was one.
Who knew that juggling was something you could make a podcast about?
I mean, you make an episode about juggling, but like a whole series of episodes about juggling.
I didn't
Great.
know that.
Like if you can do
All
that, that's
power to you.
fantastic.
That's amazing.
The variety of different podcast topics there were indicated the variety of different personalities there were there.
Yes.
And certainly, like we love the fact that in our daily lives we get to mix with different people. And for me, sometimes those interests and topics are uncomfortable for me to be around.
Yeah.
But you know what? Once we got to know the people, it was like, oh man, like this is really cool. Like we're making friends with all different kinds of people, and that was the takeaway for me. Was being one of the group,
right?
And us all interacting with each other and all learning.
Yeah, so that's essentially what I wrote in the newsletter this morning to our Patreons. Every week we put out an encouraging kind of newsletter to our Patreon members. So this morning I was kind of thinking about, my takeaway from the whole experience. And I would say that mine was going in wanting to find connection points with people.
Yes.
Because there were so many different people there. And from all different walks of life, all different backgrounds.
Different ages.
I mean, you couldn't have picked probably a more
eclectic
group of people, which I think is fantastic.
Yes.
I absolutely love that. And what I have learned is that even though people may seem on first glance to be really different from you, if you stop and listen and see them, 9 times out of 10, you're going to find something that you have in common with them. And our world is so driven by media that just wants to divide everybody into factions and, this side and that side and this category and that category and this label and that label. But I am telling you, if you just take a minute to, ask someone a few questions, get to know their story a little bit, you will almost always find something that you have in common with them. We met some really, really cool people and made some new friends, and that was my takeaway.
That was the beautiful view.
That was the beautiful view.
Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for allowing us to share our experience at the Iowa Podcast Awards. So what are we going to talk about in our next episode?
Well, next time our episode is going to be called Be Inspired.
Be inspired.
Yeah.
There are some people who get inspired by a walk in the woods.
Yeah, some people are inspired by listening to music.
Yes, there's a whole spectrum of different ways that inspire us. And when we get inspired, we do great things.
That is true. If you know of someone who would enjoy this podcast, please point them in our direction. Visit us at Beautiful View Podcast on Facebook or Instagram. Share our posts or share the link to our podcast. Also, you can watch a video recording of our most recent podcast on YouTube. The link to those are in our show notes.
Yes. Also, we would really appreciate it if you would follow, subscribe to, or leave a review for us on either YouTube or your favorite podcasting platform. These things are completely free for you to do, but it really helps people find the Beautiful View podcast.
And shout out to the Hopeful Few for the catchy theme song on our podcast.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, you can check out more of their music on Spotify or Apple Music. The link to that is also in our show notes.
Yes, it was great to hear Tyler and Kelsey singing at the show.
It was,
like with our theme music. That was really cool.
Woo-hoo.
And just a reminder, please consider joining the Beautiful View Patreon. This helps us keep these episodes coming and cover our costs. Memberships are only $5 a month. The link to sign up is in our show notes and is also on our social media accounts.
We hope you have a great day, and remember to always keep an eye open for opportunities in life to see a beautiful view.
We could climb a mighty mountain, future too. Oh, I'm not scared of where I'm going, 'cause I know whose hand I'm holding. Oh, I'd go anywhere as long as you're going too. And I'd go anywhere